So let's analyze this awesome point I found on the YouTube account Tennisportalen TV. It's a Swedish tennis account. Make sure you subscribe to their awesome channel. I've put their link in the description below. So let's watch the point and then we'll analyze it. Now, both of these players are pros, and in fact, this player is around 100 in the world currently. So here's the serve. One thing you know about the serve and comes to the footwork is after you serve, you want to make sure that you hop backward, because any deep ball that comes near your feet, you're going to be jammed, or any ball that comes like even just past the service line, you're going to feel actually a little cramped. And that's actually what happens here. You'll watch the return and it lands just a little bit past the service line, but the server never moved back. He stayed in front of the baseline. And this actually means that the ball that relatively should be pretty short and easy to handle actually has him moving back and feeling a little weak on this ball. So he can't really lean in. He can't really do what he wants to with this ball. And so he really is going to have trouble putting enough power into this shot. So make sure that after you serve as the viewer, that you learn to hop backward and get behind the baseline. That way you can really do what you want and impose your will on your second shot. Now, if you were ever caught in this position where you're leaning back and you really feel like you can't put much power on the ball, then you've got to go for depth. And the way you do that is by aiming high to try to get this ball to land deep in the court. I want you to watch where the server makes this ball cross the net. He actually hits the ball quite low over the net. So there's not a lot of depth on his shot. The ball lands near the service line. So that means that the returner gets to do whatever he wants to with the ball. And you'll notice that he actually slices this. When you hit a slice, it is a great way of changing up the pace and the spin and the bounce on the opponent. And in fact, watch what happens with this shot. He puts backspin on the ball. I want you to watch how the server responds to this. He's moving backward, which is actually not something I would recommend. I wouldn't recommend running around a shot that you're moving backward on. It just means you're going to be out of position for the next shot, and it typically doesn't bode well. So if you're going to move around a ball, you either want to hold your ground or be able to move inside the court. I wouldn't recommend moving backward and running around a ball to make it your forehand. And watch what actually happens. He doesn't play this ball in a very comfortable manner. Watch kind of his head, watch him reach for this ball. He looks quite awkward hitting this ball. And that's because the ball, because it had all this backspin, it really checks up and slows down when it hits the ground. And he's having to contact this ball way out in front. So he moved himself off the court and then hit actually a pretty weak ball. And that allows the returner to move around this. Now watch as he's moving around, how he's moving forward. Again, I mentioned if you're going to move around a shot, it's fine to move around a ball, but you got to make sure you're doing it while moving forward or at least holding your ground. Look where he currently is behind the baseline and watch as he moves around this ball where he is when he's done. He is inside the court. That's the way you want to move around a ball. Move around a ball if you can advance forward, and he moves around this ball and does what's called an inside-in shot. When you move around your backhand to hit a forehand and you hit it down the line, that's called inside-in. When you move around it and you hit it cross-court, that's called inside-out. So he hits the ball down the line. Since the server moved out of position to hit his forehand, that actually makes it so that the down the line is now open. So the returner hits the ball down the line, and he senses that he can now advance, which watch, he now starts moving forward. Now, if you watch any of the videos that I make, I don't care if it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, on my website, 2minutetennis.net, you know that when your opponent is coming to the net, I recommend that you aim the ball low to their feet. That's exactly what the server does, which is awesome. You want to make volleyers hit balls from below net level. What does that force them to do? They're either going to miss the volley, either in the net or way long, but it makes them have to volley up. So that's what the returner has to do. The returner has to volley the ball back up, and that gives plenty of time for the server to run this ball down. Now, I'll just tell you right now, and you saw it already because you watched the shot or the point, he's going to go for a lob here. Now, I want you to think of lobs as against a right-hander going into this corner, right? So your opponent, their court is cut into quadrants, right? So you've got the front right, you got the back right, you got the front left, and you got the back left. But when you're playing a right-hander, really focus on this back right quadrant of their court. And the reason is you're trying to force them to have to deal with a lob that is going over their backhand side. So first, let's watch the shot. He hits a beautiful topspin lob right over his head, and he wins the point. But I want you to watch, because the ball is going over his backhand side, watch how the approacher, the returner, has to move. He moves across to try to get it to be his forehand, and then he moves back. So he makes this move, which wastes time, and he can't get his racket on the ball. Look how he moves laterally, and then he moves back. If this ball would have gone down the line or over the forehand side, he could have immediately just moved back and then slammed this ball for an overhead. One of the benefits of hitting the ball over your opponent's backhand side is it makes them question a little bit how they're going to turn this into a forehand. So they end up moving over before they move back, and then your lob that could have been reached if it went over the forehand side actually ends up being a perfect lob over their head, and the server ends up winning the point. So even though this point really was dominated by the returner, the server won the point with very smart play.
Now, before I draw these strategies up on the big board, you got to make sure you get a copy of the Singles Playbook by Fuzzy Yellow Balls. If you love strategy as much as I do, it's over 50 pages, strategy after strategy, showing you exactly how to beat your toughest opponents. By the way, this is actually called the Swiss watch. This is the Roger Federer strategy he used all the time throughout his career to dominate points from the baseline. Now, it's not just a book that you get with this. Every page comes with a QR code. Hold your phone or tablet up over the code, and up pops a video, 5-minute video of Will Hamilton from Fuzzy Yellow Balls showing you exactly how to implement that strategy. To get your own copy, just use my link. It's in the description. I'm also going to pin it in the first comment. Now, if you're looking for people in your local area to play matches against or practice with, or if you want to find a coach who's close to you who can help you with your game, then use my link for PlayYourCourt, and it's playyourcourt.com/2-minute-tennis. When you use my link to sign up, you get 50% off. Remember, when you're serving, after you serve, your serve usually should, with a toss that's going into the court, you'll end up inside the baseline. But you got to make sure that you move backward. You cannot stay inside the baseline. You've got to get back. That way, any deep return is not pushing you back while you're hitting, but you've already moved back. Now, when you return, obviously the goal is to hit the ball deep. We saw that player, the server, leaning back, and he didn't quite get enough height on that ball, which is why that ball landed so short. Now, the returner, very smart player. He used a slice backhand. I recommend people use slice so much more than they do. And the reason is because it really changes the bounce and the speed and the cadence of the ball coming off the court. Sometimes the ball checks up and slows down. Sometimes it skids, right? Topspin, though it goes in a lot, it's pretty predictable how the ball's going to come off the ground. But slice, it can be pretty unpredictable. And what we saw was this really deep ball, really deep, that pushed the red player back, or the server back. But this is what he did. He moved around that ball while moving backward. I would not recommend that you move back and move around a ball, because now you're not really going to be able to hurt your opponent with your shot, and you just opened up the court, and that's exactly what happened. We saw the returner move over, and he hit this ball down the line. That's called inside in. He crushed it down the line, and that's when we saw him advance and come forward. Now, what should you do when your opponent approaches the net? Your goal is to make the ball land around the service line. That way you are forcing your opponent to deal with a low ball. So aim low. Don't feel like you got to go for a pass or avoid them right away. Give them a low volley. I promise you, if you just focus on giving your opponent a low volley, they're going to miss so many of those. The volley was a forehand. He had to pop that ball up. And here was the brilliant shot. Remember, your opponent's court is cut into quadrants, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. When you are playing a right-hander, really focus on this back area if you are going to go for a lob. And the reason is because it goes over the backhand side. And what we saw was him move this way and then move back. He moved over and moved back. And I can tell you that guy, he's ranked just outside the top 100 in the world. Your opponents are going to do the same thing. They're not just going to go, oh, I would make this move. No, no, no. The initial reaction is to try to make it a forehand, and it's easy to misjudge, and then the ball goes over your head. So please go out and film yourself, or it goes over your opponent's head is what I meant to say. Please go out and film yourself playing matches. Don't just watch 2-minute tennis videos. I mean, please do. But don't just watch them and say, okay, that's it. I've learned what I need to learn. Go out and film yourself and review the footage and compare what you're learning in these videos to what you are actually doing when you record yourself and review your own footage. You do that, there's no doubt. You're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2minutetennis.net. You got this.